Hello, third graders. This week, what we're going to do in garden classes, we are going to talk a little bit about adding tree groves to our park. So far we've added flower borders. We've talked about our overall landscape design, took inspiration from the Olmsted brothers, right? We've learned about Balboa Park when we read The Tree Lady. Okay, so just like Balboa Park had all those great trees, okay, your park is going to have some trees too. And I want you to think about, why would we add trees to a park? What benefit do trees give us? Can you think of something? They help give us oxygen, right? They're great for the planet. But also in a park, think to when you go and walk through, say, Lincoln Park or another local park that has some great big trees in it, especially in the summertime when it's really hot. And you're thinking, it's great to get out, but gosh golly gee, it would be nice if I were a little bit more comfortable. What happens when you walk in these little forested areas? It cools off, right? That temperature drops by actually a good amount. Okay, and so trees are great in parks and landscape design because they help give people shade. They give a lot of the critters, right, places to live and cool off, and just are a key part of that ecosystem. So today what we're going to do is we're going to talk about tree groves in our park. We're going to talk a little bit about conifers, and you're going to get out from your garden kit. You have some little mini pine cones. We're going to talk a little bit about pine cones, okay, and the different parts. We're going to label them, because what are pine cones? Why are they important to trees? Does anybody know what pine cones hold? Pine cones are seed pods, right? And so these are really important. These are how the conifers, okay, reproduce. And so different cones, pine cones come from pine trees. Different cones come from different trees, all right? But they're all seed pods. So we're going to get this out, and then we're going to do some math. Yay! We're going to figure out the different types of trees, right? Maybe you use pine trees, maybe a spruce, maybe a cedar. They have different costs. And so you're going to figure out you have $10,000 for $10 to spend on your tree grove in your park. So you're going to figure out how many different types of trees you can get, okay? And so you're going to do that math and do it here. So you're going to have this sheet out. You're going to have your pine cones from your garden kit. If you don't have your garden kit, you can just follow along, or you can go find a pine cone outside. There are some that are still falling on the ground. Okay, I have a neighbor that they still have pine cones that are all over their property. And so really a block or two, usually you can find a pine cone. Okay, all right, so let's get started. All right, so we've got our tree groves worksheet out, and what we're going to be doing is we're going to be talking a little bit about the different parts of the little pine cones that I gave you. Okay, and then we're also going to be doing some math and figuring out what kind of tree groves you would want to add to your park. So your park will need to have some forested areas to provide shade in the summer and shelter in the winter. You need to use evergreens. Who remembers what evergreens are? It means they don't lose their leaves, right? They're not deciduous. So you'll need to use evergreens for most of the areas, specifically conifers, which means that they have cones for a seed pod. These trees will produce pine cones, which park patrons can examine, children can play with, and animals can eat. We will get a close-up look at pine cones and dissect one to look at the seeds, understand the parts, and understand that the different types of trees produce different pine cones, or different cones. Pine trees produce pine cones. Okay, so that's what we're going to do first. And then second, we're going to say, if you have $10,000 to spend on trees, what could you buy? A price list is below with the type of trees and the cost for a whole grove of saplings. So it says this is the type of tree and this is the cost per grove. With your $10,000 budget, how many groves of each can you buy? All right, so we're going to do a little math. And then we're going to dissect our pine cone and dissect your pine cone and how many seeds were you able to extract from the scales. Write the number in the circle to the right. So that's what we're going to go ahead and start with. So you can see here, okay, we have our pine cone. And here we have a diagram of a pine cone. On the left-hand side, can you see the scales? They are tightly closed. Okay, you couldn't stick your finger in there like this one. You can see it's open. I can stick my finger kind of under that scale, all right, and it is open. So pine cones tell us a lot about the environment, specifically the weather. This one is nice and open. It's been inside for a while, okay, and this one on the diagram is nice and closed. Now what happens is you can put this one in some water, okay, and watch and see what happens, especially ones that you find outside. Now these have been dried for probably a year, so they've been in your garden kit for a while, and before that I bought them online, so they've been in a nice dry warm spot for a while. But if you find one outside in nature, okay, put one on your porch, maybe in some cold weather, okay, or put it in the fridge or the freezer in some water and watch and see what happens. It's going to close up, because is wintertime a great time to be releasing seeds from the pine cone? No, it's not, right? It wants to wait. That pine cone has like a little timer on it that says, it's cold and wet. Now's not a great time to be releasing the seeds. And then once it gets warm and dry, it says, oh, this is really nice. This is a good time to open up and release all those seeds that are inside. Okay, so on our worksheet, we're going to label this one on the left is a closed pine cone. And this one on the right, you can see the scales are open, okay? And then to remember what each one tells us, we're going to draw a little symbol. So what symbol should we draw for a closed pine cone on the left? Think about it, okay? When it's closed, it's really cold. I'm going to draw like a little snowflake. Okay, so closed is a little snowflake, or you could do raindrops, right? Because we don't get a ton of snow here, but definitely cold. Closed is cold, okay, and wet. And what about open? What kind of sign should we draw for open? We're going to do a sunshine. Oh, that's a fluorescent one. So remember, when it's open, okay, you can't really see the fluorescent all that well. Sorry about that. But I drew a nice big sunshine here. Open is nice and warm and dry. Okay, closed is cold and wet. Right, and you can do this experiment when you find pine cones in nature. Okay, they're going to tell you a lot about what there is. Now, next up, what you're going to do is you're going to take apart your pine cone, and we're going to see this is a close-up of the scale. So you can see this little line. It's one of these. Okay, and so with your pine cone here, okay, you can go ahead and kind of break it apart. It's not, you don't need these after this, so break it apart. You can use your fingers. If you want to use some scissors, you can do that. Okay. You can see I kind of just use my fingers and twist that little scale off. Okay. Oops, there we go. So this is one scale right there. So you can see that's the outer edge, okay, on this side. Just trying to focus. There we go. Okay, so this is the outer edge. This is the inner edge. And with scales in a pine cone, that seed, one seed lies on each scale. Okay, so the seed is usually on the inside corner, so it's going to be right here. All right. And so if you have, it flew with my finger. All right, if you have your magnifying glass from your first garden kit, okay, you can use that and get a really good up-close view of your pine cone scale. All right, so you can take it apart. You can see how many scales, or count, or take it apart, how many scales it has. I think this might be the little seed. The little seed sits right there, and oftentimes it's like a maple seed, right, where it's going to fly in the wind. Okay, so it has the scale overall. Okay, so this part is the scale. Okay, so this is the scale, and it's one scale is like right here. Okay, so refocus, there we go. So this is the scale. And then on the base of this scale, you can see this has two, but these are the little wings, right, that help it fly in the wind. This is the seed. Okay, and they're always going to be, the seed is on the scales, right? And so they're always going to be towards the middle of your pine cone. Sorry, it got really dark there. but the seeds are going to be on the middle of your pine cone. The seeds aren't on the outer edge. They're protected. They're in the middle so that when it seals up, those seeds are really protected. Okay, so then you can go ahead and if you can count how many scales your pine cone has, or you can make an estimate, okay, which means not quite an exact number. So you can see like I count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 scales on the bottom, and I have 1 row, 2 row, 3 row, 4 row, 5 row. So what's 5 times 5? Well, let's skip count. So 5, 10, 15, 20, 25. So I'm going to estimate that my pine cone has 25 seeds if I have 1 per scale. Okay, perfect. All right, nice math. So the last part of our tree grove exercise, we are going to be doing a little math. So if we are planning in our park to have a lovely tree grove, okay, or a couple, right, we are going to have to figure out how many groves $10,000 could buy us. Okay, and so we'll start here. We'll start with pine tree groves. So each pine tree grove is $1,500. So $1,500, okay, then 2 of them would be $3,000. And then if I take another one, that's going to be, does anybody know? $4,500. 4 of them would be $6,000. 5 of them would be $7,500. 8 of them would be $9,000. Now, can we have more than 8? No more than 4, 6, more than 6? No, because that would take us over the $10,000. So we could have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pine tree groves. Now, spruce tree groves are $1,000, and we have $10,000. So how many spruce tree groves could we plant in our park if we went with spruce trees? We could plant 10. That's right. Nice math. And then cedars, so these are smaller trees. We're going to get some small cedars, are $500 per tree grove. So how many cedar tree groves could we get? Well, let's see. The spruce trees were twice as much. They were 1,000. We could get 10. So what's 2 times 10? 20. Nice job. So cedar groves, we could have 20. Perfect. All right, and then that's it, you guys. You have gone ahead and completed your tree grove worksheet. You've learned a little bit about conifers, taken apart your pine cone. See if you can go find a pine cone and do those experiments where if it's in water or cold in the freezer, okay, have them see if you can get open and close them. All right, perfect.